Even though schools are closed, Easthampton High School just came up big, really big, winning a national civics championship entitled We the People. The team won the state in January and was supposed to travel to Washington for nationals, but instead, they swept the competition in a contest that was held via Zoom. Carolee McGrath spoke with Kelley Brown, a history and government teacher and the director of the We the People program, to learn more.
Back in January, our We the People program competed in the Massachusetts We the People Center for Civic Education We the People competition, and we won the state competition, which made us the representative for Massachusetts, and we were slated to travel to Washington, D.C. at the end of April to compete against other schools. And this is actually our third year in a row winning states, and so this would have been our third year in a row to go to Washington, D.C. But clearly things changed and the competition became digital. And so on the weekend of April 25th and 26th, my students competed virtually in the National We the People competition, and we won. Like national champions, and it's absolutely crazy. Never in a million years did we think, we hoped that we would do well. The last couple years we've won awards, but it's a really competitive program, and never in a million years did we think that we would win, and we did. So we're national champions.
National champions right here from Easthampton. Tell me a little bit about the competition, and if you could back up even before that, about the whole coursework that's involved.
Sure. So this is a course that students take. It's 11th and 12th graders at Easthampton High School, and they take the course. It focuses on understanding, kind of an in-depth understanding of the U.S. Constitution. And so everyone in the course learns about the Constitution kind of from philosophical and historical foundations all the way through to modern application. And the way that the course assessments work is they're in the form of what we would call authentic assessments. And what that means is that students engage in a mock congressional hearing at the end of each unit of study, where they work as a team to become experts about certain topics in that unit, and they prepare a statement, and then they testify. I bring in volunteers from the community, and they testify about that, and then they answer questions on the spot that they don't know. And so we do that kind of at the end of each unit. And then in January, we always compete in the statewide competition. And so the Center for Civic Education, which is out of California, devises this competition that happens all over the country, where high school students testify about certain subjects and they answer questions in front of professionals in the field of law and constitutional history, et cetera. And I think lastly, maybe the last piece to help you understand is that for the competition itself, students are broken into smaller groups. So I had 21 students in my course, and so each one is put on a team of 3 or 4. And for the state competition and the national competition, they become experts in a particular area of the Constitution. So my Unit 1 team focuses on historical and philosophical foundations, and say Unit 5 focuses on the Bill of Rights. And so they really get a sound kind of understanding in the course, and then by the time we get to the competition, they then become experts in one particular area.
Do all of the kids compete in that competition?
Yes, and that's actually one of the reasons why I love this program, is that this is not about like creating some kind of dream team. This is whoever walks through that door, we're going to raise the expectations and really push those students to be the very best that they can. And for me, I don't even offer it as part of an advanced placement course. Really, anybody at Easthampton High School who wants to take the course can. And so I think our program really represents what the Center for Civic Education and the We the People program is about.
But it sure sounds like an AP structure, though, as far as what they're learning and the types of activities they have to do.
Yeah, I think so. But one of the reasons why I don't offer it as an AP course is I think there are lots of skills that students are developing in this, and I really want to encourage a diverse group of kids to not apply, but to take the course. And for me, offering it as an AP course, I think actually does sort of make some students afraid to take it. And I think there are anybody who gets passionate about something can be really skilled at it. And so for me, that's actually really important, is that the course is open to everybody, and that I encourage students from all different skill levels and knowledge bases to join.
Why is it so important that students and adults, I mean, I fall into this category as well, understand the Constitution?
Well, I think we live in a democratic republic. The first three words of the Constitution, as it says on my shirt, are "We the people," and I think you really can't have a republic that is a social contract without having the people understand how your government works. And I think for a couple of different reasons. One is clearly participation. We want people to participate by voting, but I think it's really important for people to understand a lot of the values that exist in our democratic social contract. And I think we have to learn how to talk to each other. We need to learn how to listen to each other. Civil discourse is a really big emphasis in this course. Students need to understand kind of what the basis of our government is. They need to learn how to be civically engaged just in their own communities with their neighbors. And I think there's a lot. They also need to be willing to watch their government, right? I mean, part of being a responsible citizen is being knowledgeable enough to filter the media and to be able to keep an eye on what's happening. And we talk a lot about that. The framers were pretty skeptical of human nature. They were concerned that if we didn't have an educated citizenry, that people may tend to take advantage of their power.
Is there anything that surprises you each time you teach this course, as you have, different groups of kids come in with different perspectives?
I think one of the things that surprises me, I think, is it always amazes me how passionate the students become about the material. And I think you could look at the course material and think, wow, this is going to be really boring. Like, we're going to read the Federalist Papers, or they're going to know, the U.S. Constitution by article, section, and clause. It's not something I think most teenagers look at and say, like, I want to be part of that. But we have created a program where students are saying, like, I want to be part of that. And part of it is, I think the more knowledgeable you become about something, the more passionate. It's easier to be passionate about it. And so if you feel like you know a lot, then I think all of a sudden you start seeing these ideas pop up everywhere around you, right? It's easier to want to filter and follow and really test out the media when you understand how to do it. And so I think it helps students to understand that they can be active filters of what's going on around them, and they can understand what's happening in the news, and they can also be a part of it. And I think that's something else that really impassions them to think about wanting to get involved in politics or get involved in education, those types of things, which just it surprises me. Even though I see it over and over again, it surprises me every time how incredibly passionate these students get about material that I think a lot of people may think is, it's not as exciting as, say, watching and learning about sports or something else that people find interesting in their lives.
And what could you say about the students? Obviously, their hard work paid off, and their passion, which you certainly captured, with this material, has really turned into something incredible.
They were absolutely incredible. There's a couple of just really quick things I'd like to say about it. I think the first that impressed me the most about this group is they really knew how to be a team. I think in any competition, students are sometimes focused on themselves, and the way in which the groups really helped each other and encouraged each other was part of, I think, what helped us to be successful. The other thing I want to say is that when we left school in March, we knew that this was going to be a virtual competition. And these students could have walked away and said, like, oh, I lost my chance to go to DC. They were basically throwing off all of the extrinsic rewards. And they could have just decided that they didn't want to do it, but they kind of did the opposite. They spent 3 hours with me every single day preparing for this program, and I think really took advantage of this opportunity. And I guess it showed me that they really wanted to be successful for the right reasons. And that to me was such an exciting moment. They were all shocked. We were all shocked when we won. But the community that we have, this sort of We the People community that's made up of the current students, but then all of our alums who were home from college and were joining our Zoom sessions to help us, and all the community members that were behind us. It's just a really cool thing that I'm very, very proud to be a part of. And it really is a community effort. It's not me, it's not any one student, it's a whole community that we've created of people that feel really passionate about this.